morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scouser's Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser. It's a Wednesday. The Wednesday crew is back. Since it is a Wednesday, I am back to being the number one dad, the greatest dad, and number two is here. Gordo, what's happening?
I definitely need a coffee. I don't know if you can tell by my eyes. I've had the roughest 2 weeks. Ever since we had to let that guy go, it's been one thing after another over here. So I've been too busy.
Cursed?
Yeah.
Oh man, the curse of the dude. He's probably it's like a bad movie on his way out. He was like, "You guys will pay for this." John is with us. What is happening?
What's going on, guys? I've recovered a little bit from last Sunday. Ready for a mellow midweek show. I think I desperately need one, so yeah, happy to be here.
Honestly, when you put that photo up there, that's why I thought there was like some game like with Golden State got screwed yesterday or something.
Oh,
like
no.
That was the story behind that.
No, it's completely Liverpool related. So for those who are watching, Luka Doncic over here gestured towards the referees, going like this, which essentially means they were paid off. So yeah, I feel like that's what the majority of Liverpool fans feel after last Sunday. Still haven't gotten over it, but slowly getting there.
No, I mean, it's kind of hard to get over it because I think every time something happens, you're like, damn it, if that didn't happen, kind of a thing. And it just kind of like brings you back. I think that's where I'm at least. So, by the way, speaking of coffee, do not forget, we're always brought to you by Reckless Coffee Roasters. Got it going here. And yeah, this morning we did do a recording. I was just telling you guys before it went on air, we did a recording. We recorded for like 2 hours. And honestly, it felt like we could have probably gone overnight. So I was even like, I might just like show up for the morning show from here. We recorded like our first session of the Scouser, an Irishman, and a Turk for the Patreon viewers. And yeah, it looked like it could keep going on and on and on. I had to put an end to it. It was midnight my time, so you can't imagine that. So, which means it was 1 a.m. for Mecca over there. Okay, a bunch of news to get to today, and mostly on the good side, actually. So that's a shocking thing overall. So the Michael Edwards thing, that's the funny. We've talked about this on the Monday Night Podcasts. Last week there were a lot of rumors. I mean, we kind of like touched up on it and stuff like that, but I thought they're not going to make anything official or anything this week. It will be next week during the international break. And literally, I think less than 12 hours after I said that 3 times on the Monday Night Podcast, they make it official. Godo, where are you at with this news? Because I see, I was asking the boys Monday night because I see a lot of people over the top joyed. And I also see some concern. The concern part I don't get, but where are you at?
I think in the context of Klopp leaving, this is a big positive for us, right? We've got somebody at the helm who's already done the job, who's already we're confident and comfortable with. He's made some fantastic signings. He's also offloaded some people for more money than they're probably worth, and so it gives you a little bit of stability because there is this giant hole that we keep getting closer and closer to with every day that Jurgen Klopp is going to leave. And it's kind of nice that there's somebody at the helm that will, at least we know, might steer the ship in the right direction, because it's something that I think is going to take a long time to get over for us.
Yeah, we'll get to that, I think, because I think that's probably the major talking point, right? The fact that with Klopp, I kind of like the fact that this helps the new manager more than anything else, I think, because he doesn't have to feel that big of a void. And then, everybody does their own job. And there's going to be, it feels like it's more of a system in place. Endo is a new song, by the way. I did not catch that one yet.
I didn't catch it either, but I'm sure it's a banger.
Mitush has tested and approved it. Ryan says, good morning, boys. Sister's about to give birth. Her first and only kid is 20, so it's crazy. That is crazy, actually. Gonna submit Smoochin for a name. I mean, hey, here's a selling point. It's Genghis Khan's name, actually. Fun fact.
Ooh.
Yes.
That's cool.
It's Genghis Khan's, and I did not find this out till I was like 12 or something. But I have no idea.
Kind of like Genghis Khan, Tim. You're conquering the social media space like he did the world.
Where's the drum roll when you need it? But yeah, I don't know like how the hell like my mom came up with it, to be honest, because it's not a very common name back home either. But then I was like, I don't know how the hell I ran into it, but hey man, what is that supposed to mean? That's like a good thing. That was a selling point.
It's like something crazy, like 11% of today's population has direct roots to Genghis Khan.
Right.
Is it really? Yeah, I
Yeah.
was busy back then. No,
Genghis is a very nice term for what he was
there was
doing.
a lot going on over there. But there's just no wonder to put you such a dictator behind the scenes. Yeah, man, I mean, you know, once a dictator, always a dictator. Yeah, it's in my DNA. But yeah, how about you, John, with this whole Edwards thing? Where are you at with it? I mean, I take it as great news, but I'm not taking it as all right, job done over here. We got Edwards.
Right.
He'll take us to promised land either.
Yeah, it's not job done, but then in a season that's probably going to be filled with uncertainty next year, at least we have the certainty, the safety. Now we've talked about it quite a few times over the last few shows. It's nice to have that safety net next year, knowing that we won't have the guy that we've always relied on to steer the ship over the last few years in club. So Edwards is probably the next best thing in terms of constructing our best ever squad, getting the players there. Some were expensive, right? But you would exceed that. But you would make an argument that, you know, let's say the Van Dijks for 75 million, the Allisons for 80 or so million. They've actually exceeded those fees. So
Yes.
they're pretty much worth more than what we paid for them. So Edwards has really a great track of constructing the squad well through appropriate financial means, and it's a positive step. I'm really positive about it, and there are definitely worse positions you can be in, like a la Man United 2013, when stuff like this when stuff inevitably transitions over to the next era. So I'm honestly surprised there are people who think that this is a bad thing. Honestly,
I know people are like, because he wanted like more power and, I mean, so we were okay with giving power. Obviously, Klopp had all the power in the last few years. But I think more than that, maybe deep down inside, people know that Edwards, and I think that's why he was gone. I mean, obviously it didn't align. That's why I think he wants power. He doesn't want, he was not too thrilled. The rumors were he was not too thrilled with, like giving contract extensions to some of the guys for, who were above a certain age and stuff like that, like Handel, Milner, and all that kind of stuff. So, Gordo, should we expect some unpopular decisions? I think we were going to get them anyway because of a new manager, new system, and this dude just does not fit that kind of a deal. But should we expect even more, I guess, unpopular decisions now because Edwards is going to be in the equation as well?
100%. I mean, we've got some big contracts coming up at the end of this summer that may have already been decided. The player probably has already decided one way or another. And now Edwards is going to be the scapegoat because, right, like it may have happened regardless of him being there, but definitely, if contracts are not extended, if people are not given their new contracts with nice shiny another zero at the end of it, then he's definitely going to be people are going to point the finger at him, and so I guess in a way it's good, right, because it takes the pressure off the manager. Because it might not be the man, maybe whoever comes in doesn't want a particular player, maybe doesn't value what they offer the team and ships them off. But Edwards is going to take the brunt of it, that's for sure.
And that's for one, and it sounds like, I mean, it's always felt like John is that he is a lot more analytical. I mean, he just looks at the numbers, facts, and a lot of the emotion does not get into it. That does make, I mean, we talked about this in the past. There's pros and cons to signing a dude. Maybe that's not giving you as much. Like, I don't know if Edwards is keeping Adrian around, but we've also talked about what he might be bringing behind the scenes. Do you think we will have some like casualties basically because of like a change in approach?
Yeah, Adrian's one for sure. And as Gordo kind of alluded to, probably a big name. We got Salah's contract, Van Dijk's contract, Trent's contract coming up. So it's a lot of things to think about if you're Edwards. And the good thing about the whole Edwards and Klopp dynamic, I guess, if you could say it, during our best years, they found a way to coexist, right?
Yeah.
Which is Klopp, more of the emotional guy, you would say, more of the personal relationships with the players about why he wants to keep them around, the Milners, the Hendersons, whereas, as you said, Edwards is more of the analytical guy. So it's like if it works, it's a great combination that kind of cancels each other's negative qualities out. They're fine. There's like this happy medium that gets followed. So as good as Edwards is, and as great as the fact that he's coming back, to help run the club, he also has to find that happy medium with whoever the next manager is, because it can be like a Brendan Rodgers situation where the transfer committee brings in players that he doesn't necessarily want in his team. Because if you guys don't recall, like Firmino was a committee signing, right? Sacco was a committee signing. Brendan didn't necessarily want these players, but the transfer guys thought it was too good a buy to pass up or something like that. So that's all hopefully something that we avoid, and hopefully whoever comes in will kind of have the wisdom that Klopp brought into the team, where, okay, I know quite a few things about the sport, but he does too. He meaning Edwards or Hughes or whoever, and they'll find a way to work together to maximize, the funds to get that right player, if that makes sense.
I guess his advantage will be, Gordo, the fact that he's gonna bring his own guy, so he will be able to, like, the new dude coming in is gonna know exactly what he's walking into. I think overall that's like the best thing I like, is the, like, FSG is going about this and taking the right steps and not going ass backwards like United would, like John was saying earlier. And not to mention, I agree with the people they are picking, but I mean, you would think this guy already knows. So we're not going to be out there scrambling for a manager. I'm pretty confident that Edwards already has one and maybe a 1A in terms of managers. It's almost like all set. I was more worried that it would drag on, like similar to I guess United, the best example, right? Where, you're like, oh, that guy turned us down now too. Why don't we go here and stuff like that?
We're definitely in a better position than United was, for sure. I think that, like, it's the difference between Sir Alex Ferguson and Klopp. They're both great managers, but very different human beings. And I think Ferguson had no business winning that Premier League the year that he lost. I mean, if you look at that team, I don't know if there's any manager that could get that team over the line and win the Premier League with that team. It still baffles me to this day when you look at the starting 11. And I think he saw the writing on the wall because he didn't have anybody else. And he left when the getting was good. And Klopp is leaving, in a much better and much harder position to leave. I feel like I really feel like it takes a strong human being and a strong person to put yourself over, or put the club over yourself, and say, being a good steward and saying, like, the club is better than it's ever been, and I'm going to walk away when it's at the peak. And I think that's, even if it takes a year or two, it's not going to be for like the club to get back to this height. I don't think it's going to be particularly dark times, which, could easily happen when somebody as big as Jurgen Klopp leaves. And I think Edwards kind of helps that along too, because we're not now. I'm confident we're not going to be making mistakes in the transfer window, which is something that happened between Benitez and Brendan Rodgers. Is too many mistakes in the transfer window, and those mistakes can sometimes take 4 or 5 years to get out.
Yeah,
and you're carrying those contracts, and they become flops, and nobody else wants them, and then you've got John Joe Shelby starting, a game. So like,
I don't think the other day in the Turkish league, he's still out and about.
Yeah, I've seen him. It's hard to miss that head.
I mean, see, that's the thing. I know, like, the natural comparison is always going to be Ferguson, but like you said, it is like totally different situations. One, leaving it in a much better situation, which honestly, that could almost make the new manager job a bit trickier, because I think everybody kind of knew, but it was in denial. And it was almost like, if he can do it, you should be able to do it too with the squad. Whereas now, I think the expectations are going to be automatically higher with the newer guy coming in. But not only that, I think with Ferguson, like, Sir Z says, because I saw this interview as well, that, Ole is talking about, Ferguson telling him to do this. First of all, I mean, I don't know why Ole is like Ferguson's little, but he's just like, yes, master. He just like goes and like signs him. But still, he was in the background, within the scenes and stuff like that. Whereas, Klopp is basically riding off into the sunset, and he's going to be like out of the picture. It's going to be like, you guys do you, I'm out of here, kind of an ordeal. Klopp did say, though, that Michael Edwards asked him about the squad and what needs to happen in the summer. How do you take that, John? Because I almost took that as, I've replaced some people in the past, and then you just do the. What do you think? Okay, thanks. But that's just more like a formality than anything else.
Well, it could be that, or it also could be a seamless transition. I feel like even though they have their disagreements, again, this is just a gut feeling, nothing concrete, right? I feel like they have respect for each other, and both of them, if the rumors are to be followed that Edwards rejected offers from multiple clubs, they do have a love for the club. So both of them want what's best for Liverpool FC. So probably, this is Klopp saying, oh, okay, this is how it is now. Maybe they need this and that. No pressure. Obviously, this is just what I think. And I think that's just it. Nothing more, nothing less, just a simple conversation between colleagues, right? And I feel like, I personally am not reading too much into it.
Yeah, I kind of like take it the same way where, if I was around, I would probably be doing this, but you do you. I gotta go, and then, just like get out of there, kind of an ordeal. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I only take it as good news just because. What's the other dude's name? God, I'm getting older and more forgetful. The Bournemouth dude's name. Because Sergi was talking about it earlier, where he said something about how much faith we have in him. But honestly, while he has paid, or maybe that's why Edwards owes him. He's like, why don't you come back? I'll give you a gig. But really, I mean, Eddie Howe at the same time Bournemouth has become a regular fixture. Richard Hughes, that's the name. Thank you. They have become a regular fixture in the Premier League, Gordo, and that's kind of like mission number one for a club at that level. So I would consider them still successful because they have not bounced up and down.
Yeah, they've been like consistently mid-table, bottom of mid-table, and apart from a couple of relegation scraps, I mean, with the budget that they have, it's not bad. And honestly, when you're looking at a team like Bournemouth, you have to put yourself in. Bournemouth are not looking to win titles, right? So they're not looking at the same caliber of players. Their pool is much smaller and much more focused. They don't have the money for scouts to go all over Europe, as much as Liverpool does. So they're looking at more teams that they can see within the country. And so Jordan Ibe, when he left Liverpool, that to me, it wasn't a bad option. He wasn't going to fit in our squad. He was touted in our youth system to be a very good player.
He was the next Sterling, right?
Yeah, they picked him up on a cheap. And to me, that's a gamble you take as a Bournemouth. I mean, Chelsea is not going to pick him up. If you fail at Liverpool like that, then not a lot of teams are going to pick you up. But like somebody from Bournemouth who are bottom of mid-table, that Jordan Ibe move isn't bad. It didn't work out, but it's a good gamble to take. They didn't get him for very much. I mean, they didn't have to spend very much on him. So, I don't see an issue with that.
I mean, I agree to that. I mean, you're gonna have to have more risky swings as one of those clubs, as long as they're not high dollar swings, because really you're hoping that you do get that guy, and then you kind of like, hopefully if he bounces back, similar to what happened with Kevin De Bruyne, Mo Salah and stuff like that, like it bounces back and suddenly that $10-15 purchase becomes 50-60. that's a couple of seasons in the pocket for a club like Bournemouth. So I can understand that the risk reward over there. So this says we need an elite sports director. Go ahead, Gordon.
Look at all the positives he's done, right? Like all the ones that have hit. Like he took Solanke off of us, and he's doing phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
He brought Wilson in when they needed a goal scorer, and although he was aging, he definitely provided goals for him. You could argue Junior Stanislav is a good move by them. I mean, trying to think of some of the defenders they've had in the past. They're not like a bad squad. They've picked up some really good players in the last 10 years.
Yeah, the fact that they've managed to stay in the Premier League for this long at a consistent basis is pretty telling. Like considering how merciless the league is,
And I don't see it as a very dominant character in this equation. I mean, and that's the whole point, I think, is Edwards brings his own guy in. He's going to be in sync with Edwards. I don't think we want someone, or I don't think Edwards wants someone. I mean, Edwards is in charge ultimately, so it's not like this dude is going to be doing something while Edwards is sleeping and he's going to wake up in the morning and we sign 3 guys. Right. I think it's all under Edwards' umbrella, and he's running the show. This is going to be his guy. I think, when you're making a team like this, your ideal scenario is keeping the guy in charge of the team happy and getting him his team, as opposed to trying to getting the best of everything and putting them together is not always the ultimate combination. It's almost like, which pieces fit together the best, I think is more important. More importantly, going back to what John was saying earlier, are you going to be able to coexist and work together and get the best out, even if you're like individually best, like you basically complement each other, kind of a thing. I don't know why Sorzi keeps saying it's not like he's coming here to make sure we don't get relegated. I don't think that's not the concept here. I think the fact that he knows the league, he knows the players, he knows the system, and more importantly, I mean, I guess that's my selling. I'm sold, John, because Edwards wants him, and what Edwards wants is what Edwards should get. We shouldn't be like, well, we don't like that guy, really. How about this one? Because he's like, okay, like I thought I was going to be in charge, is what he's probably going to say.
Yeah, he's gotta. Again, it's like when you're going to come up with something, when you're going to get a conclusion to something, you're gonna want a decent sample size to back up your conclusion. And Edwards' sample size is great. Like all these players that he purchased, that he organized, all of them were like maybe 95% were hits. So yeah, that definitely comes into the mentality where, if Edwards thinks this guy's good, there's like a 95% chance he's probably going to be good. So that's what's really going for me in terms of Edwards. And like I said, that safety net, that assurance we have there is going to be massive because, we kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago, Tim, when we were talking about the whole expectation for next season. I feel like the expectation for next season is the expectation we should have had for this season. Like with this season, what were the predictions, right? Top 3, maybe get back into the Champions League and win a trophy. I feel like that's a more realistic prediction for next year. And I think that's generally how it's going to go, considering like we thought there was going to be a transition this year with the new players and everything. But I guess we kind of underestimated how good Klopp's system is, where we could just bring in players, plug them in there, and it's all going to work out very well again. So, which is great, right? We exceeded. But next year, it's going to be a completely different system, right, with these players. So I feel like the whole tempered expectations that everyone placed towards this season kind of would apply more for next year, if that makes sense. So in terms of putting heat on Edwards, putting heat on the manager, whoever that is next year, I feel like people got to cool down, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. By the way, Matush has the song. I'm not even going to attempt that, but tune in on Monday where Matush will be singing it to everybody, and we will make
it sounds like a banger.
It does sound, well, it will be when Matush is singing it on Monday's show. Okay, see, this is the thing that kills me is I love how how come Klopp is not responsible for any of these, but Edwards is. It's not like Klopp is not infallible either. How many people, like the fact that Dan Keita stayed here this long is on Klopp, right? And Ox actually which he had many great opportunities, as we all recall. But Ox was a key player to the title winning team. And until he got injured, he looked like Arsenal really let him go for nothing. I mean, he was really. I mean, go back and watch. I keep saying this. Go back and watch highlights from that season. He's in almost freaking every freaking highlight involved in one way or another. He's either scoring, assisting,
he was
key goals.
Yeah, I believe he was our top goal as an assist contributor after the front three the season we won the league.
Yes, and then he got injured, and it went down south. And I know he had an injury history even coming over, but the injury that happened, I think it was like the Roma game, right? That happened in the Champions League or something. That's basically kind of like derailed him for good, and he never came back. But like nobody is perfect. There is not one sports director. There's not one guy who has not made a bad signing, and it always comes out right. Like when they have like a good player, they were like, 6 years ago, so-and-so turned him down. Well, yeah, he was one of the 80 guys offered at the time, and they turned him down. And then, he turned down Osimhen like 6 years ago when they offered him, and he was 16. No shit. Like, who knew? You're not going to know everything. But I feel like I think the track record shows that he knows what he's doing. But let me ask you guys this, because one of the things that he did mention, I don't think I have that as a quote, but the fact that one of the things that convinced him to come is the fact that the club's willingness to buy a secondary club and almost like use it as, like a pilot's club over there, similar to what like City has done and stuff like that. Do you like that concept? Do you support that concept? Where are we at with that? Gordon, let's start with you on this one.
I think it's the way that it's going. I think that's the way the sport is going. You got to stay on top of it. It's worked really well for Manchester City. I don't particularly like it because I feel like it's just you kind of create it is a business, but like it makes it more obvious that it's a business, right? When you've got owners of other companies, would you say, like feeder company? It strikes me a lot like F1. I don't know if you guys are interested in watching F1, but like they all have teams have other teams within F1. So it's like you've got your main like Red Bull team, and then you've got the AlphaTauri team, and like they're also Red Bull. So like the owner or the team principal of Red Bull sometimes has meetings with AlphaTauri to tell them what to do with those drivers. So instead of having 2 drivers, they technically have 4, but they're different teams. It's like it.
But they're not.
It's very obvious. There's a Red Bull logo on the AlphaTauri cars. So like it strikes me as like that, where they can just start moving players in, and then all these other teams will capture players, and then you've got this in-house farm system where nobody can penetrate because you're sucking up talent at every level and kind of keeping it behind closed doors. I worry when teams like Chelsea do that, who already do that as Chelsea. Yeah. Imagine if Chelsea had 4 teams that they were doing that on. It's like, where's the talent going to be? And for youth, like younger teams, you take somebody and you don't properly train them, or you don't properly give them what they need, or they don't feel like they're flourishing, their potential can be stagnated. And then you've lost somebody that under the right circumstance could have been fantastic and doesn't. So it's a worry, but that's where the game is going. And I'd rather Liverpool jump in on it than kind of, put our noses up to it.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at too. I know Matush was saying earlier, I'm not big on the concept either, John, but it's almost like you have to, because then you can't bitch about falling behind because the other guys are doing it. You were able to do it, you just elected not to. But it is a very dangerous path because, yeah, you can literally sign, especially, I mean, you can sign a ton of guys and stash them away, especially at the youth level. And now, I mean, I think people who should be concerned are smaller teams more than anything else, because their chance was getting that young kid who would not get an opportunity at a big club and say, hey, come here, we'll develop you. You'll eventually, I mean, we're a selling club. Come here, we've look at this guy we've sold. So come here and then, get your career in track, and then we'll send you to Real or something like that. And then we'll cash in, and then we'll work on the next few projects. But that now would be down the road taken away, John, from those clubs, because all those guys that you saw in potential are going to the feeder club of the big boys. And it almost becomes like, you know how we talk about, oh, the U21s are playing in the same system as the big team. This is going to be in the same concept, but your guy is actually now playing pro, not with youth in the same system. And then you're not going to be able to call them up like you would from a U21. But then come January, you're like, we signed him for a bag of peanuts. He's coming over here now.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for the balance of competition, the balance of power. Yeah. Like, it's gonna essentially, like, the big clubs already practically have a monopoly on the league, right? And they're gonna have a monopoly on it even further. Which, if you're talking about competitive balance, it's not great at all. But at this point, you know, if you're exclusively thinking about Liverpool, it's something that they have to do as long as the league permits it, right? If they stop permitting it, then obviously we have to jump ship and everything. But listen, if your rivals are doing it, you kind of have no choice, as you alluded to, Tim. You have to stay here. You have to maintain the standards, and it might seem pretty deceptive for some people, but it is what it is, you know. And at the end of the day, it's not about sport anymore. It's about business. It's about money. So, how do you stay at the top? How do you make more money? By staying at the top. So you gotta complete these trends and everything. So it's unfortunate.
And I think, like Sparky says, like the feeder clubs, I mean, basically not really, because that's another club. That club is basically paying for itself because it still has to, because they have to go with, we'll get to Leicester in a second, but they can't have the violations. So they have to be self-sustained. Yeah. I think you're basically, I mean, instead of testing your guy in the academy, so let's put it this way, instead of sending a player like, let's say, Bobby Clark, instead of sending him back to the academy and to continue playing against kids, you send him to another pro team where he's playing pro football and then proving himself there, and then you kind of like bring him back. And a guy who might do well, but not well enough, is then sold from that club to Fiorentina or something like that. And, you know, like they're getting their money that way. And yes, it's basically the FFP. It's a way to get around it because this enables you to have free trials, basically. But then I guess, Gordo, if everybody has their team down the road, will not be the same concept. Like, so now there's like, you know, another like 20 teams across Europe that are on the same boat. So don't we come back to square one in terms of the competition?
Well, I feel like I should have been prepared for this because I can't even tell you what country they're from. But wasn't there an issue where maybe it was Red Bull, which would be weird, in the Champions League where like two teams faced each other and they were about
I think it was Red Bull, like Leipzig and the Austrian one. Leipzig is the Austrian one.
And there was like some thoughts about like what are they going to do because they're owned by the same people. So like one of them could potentially throw the game based on interests, and so that definitely becomes a bigger factor. But yeah, I hate to say it. I know, like, the further we get along and the more stuff like this comes out, like, it just, I'd rather a Super League now. Just get those teams out. If you can buy one or more clubs, like, you probably shouldn't be in the same league as someone like Burnley or, you know, like, you like can barely afford to play their players, you know, like, or like Leicester, who like had to break FFP rules to basically win the championship and come back. So it's, I don't know, like they're not in the same leagues anymore, and it's not like it's becoming more and more like the World Cup, in my opinion, where isn't it great to get like Qatar in the World Cup just to see them? It's like it's just a game, you know, they're not ever gonna make it. Why are we doing this? Like, let's extend it to 36 teams so that there's even more games that don't matter. It's just like, and I feel like the more and more we get down the line where these clubs are becoming literally super clubs themselves, it's probably time to put the Harlem Globetrotters in their own little league, and then everyone else can.
No wonder why Klopp's tired, right?
Yeah, it's a very slippery slope, and I think, you know, like going back to what Sir Z is saying, it's going to be a lot of catching up. I mean, here's. Matur says they wouldn't have to follow FFP. We've seen an example or two, or 115 of that not being the case. Yeah. I think it's becomes they will kind of tried to catch up and come up with some rules, but the crooks are always ahead of the law, right? In some ways, and the law is trying to catch up with them, similar to like Chelsea's initial times where they did the baseball contracts, and then they were like, whoa, 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 what are you guys doing over there? And then they came up with that rule. So I feel like down the road they will try to refine this a bit more and put some restrictions. But I mean, this is like a dive, getting a yellow card for a dive in the box, right? It's really, really hard in most cases to kind of say that was a dive. So when they sell a player, if your feeder club is selling you a guy for 15, that everywhere else in the world would be 30, 35, 50, then things that make you go kind of an ordeal. You're like, wait, what's going on over there? They're like, no, I think he's worth 15 most, kind of thing. And then they're gonna sell it. So there's gonna be a lot of like shady business going over there. If Bradley was sent to a feeder club, he would have never been given the opportunity he has this year.
Wasn't it Bristol? He already had that opportunity. I think that's the difference. Like him and Kwanzaa, like Bristol and Bolton, I forget who was where. I think those were the two clubs they were at. But like if they had stayed in the U18s, the U21 feeder system, they probably wouldn't be as good as they are now because they got first team experience somewhere else.
I agree. Yes.
Like the academy is not. Yes, it's good, but you're facing other academies, and how many other academies are at our level? Probably only 3 or 4. So you're playing a bunch of basically, for lack of a better term, children, instead of going somewhere like a Bristol and getting first team experience. And it's obviously worked for them very well.
Yeah, because I mean, there is something, especially at that age, that when you go against players that are like much lower level than you, there's not a lot of learning happening over there. If anything, you're getting some overconfidence, not just confidence, but you're getting like overconfidence. And then when you face reality, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize this was like the pace that I had to play in and stuff like that. But I mean, this is that a lot of players to the lower leagues in the UK, we don't need feeder clubs. I think the difference there is how many players do we have to call back when we loan them out because they don't play. They don't, they loan them, but they're not playing. They're not getting minutes and stuff. I mean, we called back 4 or 5 guys in January and loaned them somewhere else. Now you're basically loaning them more than likely to your own club, and I'm sure they'll put a max on this and stuff. What was that?
Sorry, Tim. No, Nat Phillips is still with us, right? Reese Williams is still with us, right? It's like the revolving door.
I thought we sent Reese Williams back out somewhere else. Like he was like Carvalho. We took him back because he wasn't playing there, and we gave him the Hull where he's playing and doing.
Oh no! Even if we did send him out, we're just gonna get him back, and then we're just gonna send him out somewhere again. I'm just kind of. That's why we should have
probably sold him after we made it to the Champions League that year, and be like, hey, you know what? Cash in what we could on both those players, but we didn't. And I put that more on Klopp than anybody else. I think sometimes we just don't part. We don't cash out when we should. We stay at the table, and then now we're like, oh shit, we lost everything that we gained on those guys.
It worked with Gomez because honestly, the last 4 years I've been like, this is the summer he leaves. This is the summer we get rid of him. This is the summer we get rid of him. And then this year I'm like, he needs to be in the starting 11 every fucking game.
Thank God. I was with you there, Gordo. Gee, last summer, freaking Tim was like, hey, John, easy on Gomez.
Yes, thank you. I've been on this side for a long time. But I think the advantage is you're loaning out to a team that will play him, who plays in your exact system in some ways. So it is same as loaning out to, or like sending him back to U21s or whatever, but they get pro experience as opposed to, I mean, I think there's a lot more advantages to it. Obviously, there are disadvantages where you can't just call them on a dime and stuff like that. But I mean, I think it's a good method overall. And obviously, the ones that make it work. Just it does feel dirty, I guess, because that's not the way we want the sport to go. But sadly, it is the way it is, and sounded like he's pretty. And here's another thing: like I like having a guy with his mind running a project like that, because you can really run that shit you can run 2 clubs into the ground at the same time if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to that. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about some good news over here. So injury updates. I did not catch I know he talked about Mo today in the press conference that he's not 90, but he's almost there. So almost we were talking about it late last night, and I assuming we might see him actually start tomorrow and just give you 45 or come in at halftime and give you 45. He's gonna have a set number of minutes that he's going to play. He's not gonna just suddenly, I think, show up against United. But hey, Gravenberch back after the international break at the latest. Curtis Jones is certain to be involved against Brighton. Trent is expected to be back for Brighton. Whereas I read about that more that that's if all things go as planned, kind of a deal. Mm-hmm. Alisson back in early April. Jota back in early April. Out of all those, John, if you can get past the Gravenberch one, which one excites you the most? Which one is the best news?
Probably Jones. Like, he's the soonest one, probably the best one suited there to get back into the starting 11 immediately. Obviously, we have a few games coming before the international break, so I'm picking essentially the soonest one who can come back. But I'm with Sir Z here. Probably Jota coming back is the overall best one because we've missed his finishing ability. Like, please give him the chances that Luis Diaz had last Sunday. I swear we'd probably win 4-1. So yeah, I'm of course I'm missing my boy Gravenberch, even though he's probably not going to be playing a first team role. But yeah, to answer your question, it's probably Jota for me.
How about you, Gordo?
Same, because like with Gravenberch and Jones, we've got the midfield is sorted, right? I feel like we're okay there. We've been rotating well. Those guys are performing. Trent, obviously with Bradley, we've got the Bradley replacement. Alisson, Kelleher, Kelleher's been doing phenomenal. It's the front three are just not. I think they're running themselves into the ground, which is. I love to see it during the game, but then like every time I thought Diaz was dead, he'd do something like that move that he pulled on the left side where he put like 3 players on and then does all the hard work and then looks up at goal and then his legs just give out. And like that's because every game he's been doing that for 70 weeks by himself.
Behave, Ryan. I'm sorry. Ryan, behave, please.
I mean,
I'm sorry to cut you off there, Gonor. I just had to say something. Ryan, come on, my guy. You're our boy, but come on.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Yeah, at this point, I would do.
But here's the thing: when you say go to like the midfield, what I worry is every time we say that something is going to happen, and I always worry.
That's why I said it, John.
Like, I don't want to run these guys into the ground. I think you have a good starting 11 for midfield, but with games midweek, I'm like Jota as well, maybe because it's a lot earlier than I thought it was going to be. But I feel like Jones coming back, we forgot how good he was before he left. Is good just to be. I know Sparky says he's not getting in the team, but that's Sparky just like listen like Jones. So I feel like it helps you rotate and it helps you not, play like these guys into the ground because, like you're saying, Gordo, they do look gassed. The front three looks gassed at times.
Yeah, that's definitely the problem with front three right now is that we've used them time and time again for 6-7 weeks, and they do those guys. Nunez, especially, I know he was out for a little bit, but like when he comes on, when Diaz comes on, their whole thing is to just burn their batteries for 90 minutes, and they do it every single time, and unfortunately at the expense of their finishing. But that's another story.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was talking about this on Monday. I know I was hoping, obviously you wish his final product is a lot better for Diaz, but I feel like he gets over the top crap for his misses, while on the other side, we're like, I mean, Nunez is eventually going to come through. He misses, but he's there. That's important and stuff. Well, so was Diaz. He was in those situations. So I don't know. Yes, his final product, his final pass definitely should be better, and you hope it's better, but I mean, the effort he put in that game, man, is like just like crazy.
I love though, like Diaz ain't like he's good, but then I love how some of his performances have gotten like the revisionism and appreciation of Mane more. Because when Mane was about to leave, everyone was like, he's finished. But then, the saying, everyone kind of doesn't appreciate what you have until it's gone, right? Yeah, with Mane, it's you put him in those positions, he'd probably score. So, listen, I'm glad that people are appreciating him more because it's unfortunate how he was treated when he left.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: you had to make a choice, right? I mean, and we picked Mo, and I don't think
I understand that, Tim. But then you had some people talking like he was just some kind of bum or whatever. Like,
really?
It was. Yeah. So in the dregs of Twitter, like, thank fuck Mane's gone.
Twitter's like just a dark, over the top, dark place over here. But Football Flashback says can see a middle. Oh, shut up! Seriously, man. Don't get me started. We're almost done with the goddamn show. Don't get me started on this crap. Trent is so excited about playing in midfield, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Don't get me started. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not going to get suckered into this. Let's talk about tomorrow. I mean, in most cases, I don't want to see anybody I recognize. Mind you, now we know the entire youth team because they've been playing a lot. But Gordo, there are still some players, though, like Mo, like Szoboszlai, that you probably want to get minutes to as well. So it's kind of like a fine balance. Do you start with those guys? Do you finish with those guys tomorrow?
Finish with them because United doesn't have the bench. So, I think they can hold their own. I think they've all proven that they can hold their own when they start the games. So you lull them into some sort of, some sense of stability during the game, and then you bring on the big dogs for 60 minutes and totally upset this nice pace that United have probably set in the first 60.
Wait, you're talking to United? No, I was talking about the Sparta game.
No. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well,
everyone forgot about tomorrow.
I was like, wait, what? Like,
I figured we were already through to the next round. Sorry. Yeah, we do have
completely
a game.
understandable, to be fair.
And that's why it's almost like, you're pretty much done with the round. But
I thought our ball was already in the pot there.
By the way, did you guys see that they're not going to use balls for the Champions League groups?
As if it's going to be any less corrupt than it already is. I saw somebody being like, well, now they can fix it. And I'm like, as if they haven't been fixing it.
Like all the balls have the same name anyway. What's the difference?
Yeah, I saw that. But definitely put the kids out there. Same thing that I was saying, because I think in one of the pre-matches, it was the pre-match for that one, I forget if it was the Wednesday that Kazi jumped in, or if it was the pregame. Kazi had mentioned Sparta had been they're top of the league. They've only lost once, so they're probably not used to not dictating pace. Yeah. And so and you saw them struggle with it, because honestly, they were the better team. I felt. I don't know how we scored 5. Put that many goals against them, because I felt for most of the first they were definitely the dominant team, and we just took all of our chances and finished them. So, I think the tie's over though, so I don't think it really matters.
I feel the same way. I just think at the same time, there's a lot of players that you do not want to just suddenly start against. And that's not a Klopp thing either. He usually likes, at the least giving you 15, 20 minutes. But for a player like Mo, especially, I think more than Mo, I feel like Szoboszlai is probably a player that needs more minutes. I mean, we saw him against City. Mind you, that was against City, so probably not, it's like the toughest competition he can face, kind of an ordeal. But who are you trying to get some minutes to? I mean, for the most part, John, we're playing it safe. I mean, we're probably playing the kids like Sparky is saying. But who are like some players that you're like, he's got to be out there, get some time?
Well, Szoboszlai, like you mentioned, like with the City thing, it's not like entirely his fault. I think it's a sharpness thing. So we definitely need to get that up for him. Salah as well, probably do what you said, like the 45, then take him out. I'd like to see Gakpo start, probably get a goal or two, because he looks like a player that's really, really low on confidence right now. I'm not gonna turn on him, by the way. Like, he's been really poor, but then he's kind of like the player of the month now in terms of that regard. Like we had Gravenberch last month, we had Diaz at one point, we had Nunez at one point. Now it's Gakpo, so we kind of just have to back him. Hopefully he scores. Endo, McAllister, and Elliott should be nowhere near the pitch, considering how much they've expended over the last month or so. We have no CBs, right? Because unless you'd play Big Verge for like 45, which I have a feeling he might go like a Kwanzaa Big Verge.
He might, maybe
45.
start. I mean, Football Flashback has this lineup where there's spearing in there. You got to be kidding me. But Kwanzaa, Gomez, I like the back line. But even then again, Bradley can't give you 90, so you probably can substitute like Gomez for him at 45 or something. Gakpo, Gordon, Harvey. Definitely don't want Harvey. I think that's, and then I do agree. I think it was Ryan saying that, Mo Nunez, Szoboszlai, maybe you throw him in there like in the 60th minutes, and Sparta is like, oh, you got to be shitting me. Like when they look to the sideline and they see those three coming in. I mean, going back to what you were saying, Gordo, we kind of knew. I mean, I had seen him, like I said, playing against Gutside, and you kind of, what is that?
Just a terrible truck. Sorry.
Oh, that is a truck. I thought you were like playing bass in the background. No, it's.
I'm gonna play the endo song for you guys. Hang on, while you're asking me a question, I'm gonna rudely tune my bass guitar and I'm gonna start playing the.
You guys keep going over there. Yeah. Oh God, I totally lost my train. Oh, they were playing at home. It's going to be like a different experience for them to come away to Enfield, because there's something about, even though it's like a small stadium and stuff like that, we kind of knew that was going to be a tough away game just because of where it's at and the club and the stadium itself. Whereas now they're coming to Anfield, so they're not going to have the same confidence that they probably showed at home.
No, plus the scoreline. So, you've got those two things. Like, they probably know it's over too. So you go into a game with no hope and into a cauldron like Anfield. It's really a recipe for disaster. However, if they start as well as they do and they get one or two lucky bounces go their way and the ball goes in, it starts to get a little shaky. I don't foresee anything like that happening. But once you turn the Anfield crowd, they're intelligent enough soccer-wise that it can start to, get a little quiet, and that's what you don't want as the home team.
Probably a shout to start Van Dijk for the first 45 just to avoid that. Don't you guys think? Just to kill off.
Yeah, that makes sense in that sense. Yeah, that does make sense. Like, be the captain, get him out there, and then kind of, at halftime, we're like, okay, we're done over here, and then just take him off. Mm-hmm. And I think, as a center back, especially with his experience, I mean, the thing is, the Sunday game is obviously 10 times more important. So you want to go into that game like fully rested, ideally. But I don't even know if we have enough players to be able to do that. That's why I know, like, nobody wants Adrian in goal, but I'm like, why the hell not?
Play him.
Why the hell not? In a game like this, if he's not going to play now, when is he ever going to play? And dance and stuff. I mean, I don't know. It's almost like, do you want to be a little bit careful with the kids, John, at the same time? Because you do want to put them in situations that they are going to build on confidence, not lose confidence.
Yeah, I like Dan's. I like him a lot. But then I'm more concerned with Gakpo's confidence, because we'll need him in this stretch run. As good as Dan's is, we'll need a Gakpo more than Dan's. And for me, in terms of prioritizing either of those two, it's definitely Gakpo's confidence going back to where it was for me, because he's a really great player. It's just he doesn't look like a player who's confident in his skill at all at this time. So definitely hope that he gets one or two tomorrow. So I'd start him in the middle.
Yeah, we talked about them, I think, in the post-match, maybe it was, or I don't know if it was like the Monday morning. The way he carries himself. It's like a Van Dijk playing striker, which is not a great look, because that's not what you like, almost like a little over-the-top cocky, and like the way he carries himself, like not as aggressive, it looks like, though, on the ball physically. And I think that's like the biggest thing that people get disappointed by, because you see Nunez running around like a maniac, and going all into every ball. You see Diaz doing the same thing, and then obviously when Harvey started, he was doing the same thing. And then you have this other guy that is not. I think it sticks out a lot more when the other guys you have are kind of over the top energy press guys, and he is not. But obviously we'll be here for the pre-match once the lineup comes out, and then we'll try to figure out what the heck is gonna be on the pitch once we see the odd lineup, because I do expect a mix. And I almost think that we're going to be like, why is he even playing? Like Ando is going to be out there or something like that. But Early predictions, Gordo.
Well, first I have to set an alarm to remind myself there is a game tomorrow on the way.
It's freaking late too, isn't it?
Yeah, it's late.
It went really early, and now it's gonna be really late. Yeah, I think I don't foresee an issue. I maybe go to the Timuchin special 3-1.
I'll take the Timuchin special. That does sound about right. This game can get out of control as well. I almost carry. Sparky's going with the 3-1 as well. What do you have, John?
2-2.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because
who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Because I feel like if they took their chances, we could easily be having a tie right now. Like, I mean, obviously that's the case with every game, right? But they're not exactly a team that's, sits back and then just let us do our thing. They will attack. They will exploit our gaps, and we always leave a gap or two. And if it's a rotated side, maybe, especially when Van Dijk comes off, maybe they might get 1 or 2 there. So maybe a 2-2 for me or a 3-2 Liverpool.
Yeah, I was gonna go with 3-2. Sergi says 5-2. I'll meet you guys in the middle, and I'll go 4-2 because I do think the big difference is I think we're getting a team that's gonna just go out there and play, and it's gonna be a lot more loose than kind of like stressing it. And when they got into those situations, they really like stressed it at home. They wanted it so bad and too bad that they missed it. So I think you get a lot more loose team playing against you now. Nothing to lose. They're just gonna let's just go out there and play and do our thing, kind of a deal. So I feel like that will relax them enough to take some of those chances, and you might have Adrian in goal. So I think that by itself they will get some goals, but I think in return we get some goals as well. And once we put the troops in, because I do think I agree with Gordo. I think they come in later on. Hold on, we got an updated lineup. I wouldn't put any money on this, but so McConnell, Clark, Dan's, Gakpo, Kumas.
Not bad.
Yeah, I'm sold.
Probably would start Salah in first.
I don't think I'm starting Bradley and Gomez at the same time because that
Yeah,
you're playing one of them 90.
That's what I was going to say. And a lot of inexperience up top where like you might not get any production. Because there's something to be said for like Dan's and Kumas getting their goals because they got the supply lines from.
Yes.
Yes. It's easier when you've got world-class players giving you the ball in a position to score rather than, other U21 players. So,
and that's the thing with the kids. That's my biggest thing is you got to be careful with them still where they are on this, like confidence level now. You don't want to put them in situations where they're going to football flashes is even to start Virgil. I really think Van Dijk does start first with Kwanzaa, and then he leaves. Maybe Gomez comes in or something like that, or anybody. I don't know. Maybe Nat Phillips will make it. He's still in the vicinity, isn't he?
I don't know if he's in the Europa League squad, though.
Oh, that's another thing, though. Yes, you had to be in the squad. That's true. Yes, good point. But I would think, like Gomez and Bradley will probably rotate like 45 each, 60-30 or something like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of low-key worried about how we're running Bradley into the ground a little bit. Like, obviously, he's having the time of his life, right? He's not against it, but then, you'll never know with, like, body and everything. He's probably not used to playing midweek and then granted, he played in the championship, right? But then playing for Liverpool, different kind of intensity, trying to press that right back role as well for us going up and down. So kind of ease on him a little bit.
Or, coming into midfield and stuff and all that stuff. Okay. We'll leave it on that note. We will be here. Well, will you gentlemen, I mean, as long as your alarm is set, joining us in pre-match tomorrow?
Pre-match? Yeah, I'll be joining.
Yeah, I'll be. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then we'll probably have a couple more from the gang as well for the pre-match. So meet us then. Before then, meet Mecca and the panel tonight. I think yes, a pretty crowded panel tonight. We'll be interested to get their take on this whole, obviously the end of the City game, some of the calls that went their way, and because it's always great to get some neutral point of view, because sometimes obviously we do wear the tinted glasses. But so tune in tonight. Mecca will be hosting the Premier League panel show with the gang, and then we'll be back tomorrow with the lineup and try to figure out what the heck we're gonna see on the pitch. But we'll see you guys then. Have an excellent Wednesday, everybody. Take care.